Rach, hi.
Oh, hey.
Hi. How's it going?
Not bad. Not bad. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. Thanks so much. We're just I'll give people a couple more minutes here. We usually get some people trickling in. And yeah, well we've got a well there's a few people on so far and I saw you post your new haircut yesterday, so I'm happy to
Oh, yeah.
that we get to see it today. I love it. How's it going? Are you well you're in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fun yeah, my hair was getting insane. It was like the longest it's ever been in my life. I was just like slicking it back. It was very unfunctional, and so it feels really great to be back in action with the
Yeah.
hawk.
I'll save my questions, but I'm wondering if you have like, you know, when you're getting race ready, do you have to, do you get it in race mode?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I always make sure it's looking good for any races that I head to. It's like a fine balance because when I first get it done, it bleeds a lot, and so if I have to get it done about 10 days out from a race because by then it's not like I'm not shedding blue all over the place. And yeah, yeah,
I love it. Very cool.
yeah.
We had just a couple more people trickle in there, which is great. Um, I think just in the interest of time, because I want to respect your time, let's roll. And if people come in, no worries, I'll just let them in.
Yeah.
But hey, thanks so much. It's like such a treat to get you on here because you're such a cool personality in our sport. And I think maybe a few people, at least in here, have probably met you before. Um, but for those who haven't, obviously we have Rachel McBride with us today. And, I actually did a little bit of research because I mean, I know you, but not like super well. And so I was on your website and I was checking out the results, and results are one thing, like, so if you don't know, I mean, Rach has won quite a few Ironman 70.3 events. She's been on the podium a couple times at the ITU World Long Distance Championships. You're two-time Canadian long distance champion. And so all of that, I was like, yeah, I kind of, knew those things. But then it was the other stuff that actually I was impressed by. And one of them was that you're a cellist. Is
Mhm.
that right?
That's true. That's true.
That's
Yeah.
that's very cool. I love finding out stuff like that about people that people maybe didn't know. So do you actively practice?
Yeah, I am. So one thing, just a correction. One of the big things also recently is that I have come out as non-binary and my pronouns are they, them.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
Um,
I was
that's all
hoping
right.
we would actually get into that. Go on. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, you just broke up. Yep. So yeah, I do. I have my cello here, and especially during COVID, I've had a chance to play a little bit more than usual. I'll have to admit that I don't get to play as much as I like, but it seems that every like 5 years or so, I actually have a gig. And so I practice ferociously to get ready for that. And um, yeah, but I do still play off and on.
Very cool. And you actually get gigs, you said.
Yeah, yeah. It just seems to be kind of random, but yeah, I still get the opportunity to play in public sometimes.
Yeah. Very
Rachel, if we're
cool.
ever allowed to sing again in choir, my choir will hire you.
Amazing.
Um, and then the other thing I found interesting is that you're a board certified genetic counselor with two grad degrees in genetics.
Yeah, so that's kind of where my careers before I got into triathlon. When I became an adult athlete in my, I guess, mid to late 20s when I was doing my first master's in genetics in Ottawa, and then started racing sort of the ITU draft legal, and then burnt out really quickly on that and went back to school and did a degree in genetic counseling. However, I've never actually worked as a genetic counselor. As soon as I graduated, I became a full-time professional triathlete doing long course. So it's probably just now, it's brought me some great opportunities. However, I don't think that I'll ever work as a genetic counselor. I think my career after athletics will involve something else, but it's a really fascinating career. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. Anyway, I need to learn new stuff about people outside of the racing context that, of course, we know you in.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot. I feel like there's a lot more to me and my life outside of triathlon, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I think probably the best thing to do is I'll moderate just so it's not too crazy. But if you have a question, you can either just throw it in the chat, or there's like a raise your hand function, or you can just kind of wave at me and maybe I'll field the questions. But I don't know if anybody wants to start. I have one or two lined up in case people are a little bit shy.
Everybody's shy.
I find it's inertia. Like usually people are shy at the start, and then it just takes one or two questions and the floodgates open. So
okay, I got.
Oh, great! Chris is going to start us off.
I'll start us off.
Okay.
Amazing.
I'm always the guy that waits and waits and waits. No, I'll try going first today. Rachel, thanks for doing this. I'm also in Vancouver, so I feel like I ride by you or pass you at Kit's Pool or something like that.
Yeah.
So thanks for doing this. If and when we all get back to a point where we can do races again, I feel like you've probably seen a lot of really great places. So I thought maybe one of the things I should do is put a bit of a bucket list together of like if there's only one or two destinations that I should make sure I do before at some point, maybe I'm not doing this anymore, hopefully not, but where would you suggest? Challenge Roth obviously seems like an incredible place, but is there anything else out there that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, Roth is an incredible race. That is just like an experience that you will not have anywhere else. But otherwise is a really easy question. New Zealand is incredible. I went there for my first time injured and not racing in 2016, and vowed that I would come back and do the Challenge Wanaka Ironman New Zealand double, which is what I ended up being able to do this year, which really changed the trajectory of to be able to have already raced this year and qualified for Kona was huge. But New Zealand is like it's just a really, really special place. Both races, especially Challenge Wanaka, the course is like I've never experienced before. It's so beautiful there, so beautiful. Everybody is amazing. The people are friendly, and it is it's just like they're both kind of like really family type races. So that out of all the races that I've done, those two have been pretty big on my bucket list. I'd also have to say some of the earlier versions of Ironman Canada and Whistler, but of course that's no longer. And you may have already done that. It's something that is, it was here basically in our backyard, and out of all the places that I've traveled in the world, that was definitely a really special venue and place. I think back in Penticton, it's going to be pretty cool too. So that's on my bucket list, is heading to Penticton. What else? I mean, Tremblant is also amazing. Speaking of Canadian races, I've only raced the 70.3 there, but again, in terms of just like the family atmosphere and the support from the community, and it's beautiful there. Tremblant for both the 70.3 and the Ironman, I think are pretty awesome. Yeah, otherwise things that are on my bucket list are Ironman Cairns in Australia. Some Aussies have convinced me that is a pretty awesome race as well. So that's on my bucket list still.
All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do these one day.
Yeah, I know, right?
Thank you.
I believe.
I think Ironman New Zealand was sort of the last one to go, wasn't it, this year? I remember that you were over there, and I don't know if they were debating whether to hold it at the time, but I know it was one of the last events to happen on the calendar. Is that right?
Yeah, it was right on the cusp before everything kind of shut down. I think New Zealand shut down a couple of weeks later, and then the sort of the rest of the world followed. So yeah, it was what a year. It was every year. It was a debate for me. Okay, do I shut my season down early so I can take an early off season so I can start training again in December for these races? And this year I was like, you know what, we're gonna do it. I don't care what last season for me was a bit of a fiasco, and we'll just shut it down, and I'm gonna check these things off my bucket list. And what a year to have chosen to do that.
Yeah. And did you you got a Kona spot there, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you may get to use that spot like in February or in a year or in 2 years. Who knows?
Yeah. I know. I don't know what they're going to do with that. It's really unclear. I'm slated to race in February if that's going to happen. I am actually quite doubtful it will happen, but moving forward, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with all of us who have qualified.
Mm-hmm. They probably just keep your spots almost indefinitely, I would think.
Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't trust Ironman to do anything that is fair or ethical. Unfortunately.
Fair enough.
To be honest.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, I know they keep stringing people along with race dates, I think, this fall, and who knows? I'm very skeptical that things are going to happen this fall, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Who else has a question? Anybody? Yeah, Andy? I think you're on mute, Andy.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, Andy.
How you doing?
It's good to see you. You got a good beard going.
I got the COVID beard going. It is so bad. Like the hair is like, I got wings that I haven't had since I was like 14. I got a couple of questions, I guess, related to Kona. How many times have you done that? I'll get you to answer that one first, and then I'll give my follow-up question.
So I've raced Kona once
Okay.
in 2018, and I was there in 2 of the years prior just to party and spectate.
Okay. So I wasn't sure if 18 was your first year or not. So I was fortunate enough to be there that year and race. And so for me, it was like 30 years later from the second time I did it. And I'm always interested in people's experiences the first time they've gone to Kona, because I look back at mine and I've talked to a bunch of people. And so I just kind of like you to give maybe a bit of a recap of what your first time Kona experience was like, the highs, lows, the good, the bad, some maybe stuff that you took away from it that made you feel it maybe was still a fantastic experience, which for me took a long time to get over.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I mean, gosh, Kona is like, I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with Kona. you know, having been there for 2 years prior to experience what it was like, I'm really thankful that I had that opportunity, because it meant that I didn't have, you know, all of this FOMO of like, oh, there are all these exciting things happening and I'm racing, so I can't do them. And so I gotten all of that sort of partying out of my system. And I joked that that when I showed up at the start line at Kona, it was the first time that I had been to the race not hungover. And you know, my race was, you know, I think that there's only drama in Kona. You know, I don't feel like I have had tough Ironmans, but nothing really equates to the roller coaster that I had in that race. I had an incredible swim. I really just felt super in control of the pack that I was swimming with, and usually I am like barely hanging on to Meredith Kessler's feet, and ended up just swimming away from the pack a little bit and exiting the water. I don't remember exactly where I was, maybe 7th or so out of the water, and just was like so excited to be at the World Champs and starting off with having such a great day. And then I think one of the biggest downfalls for me in Kona was having a nutrition program that I thought I had tested, but really was untested in a race environment. And I believe really turned out to be my downfall, just something that really did not work at all for my body. And I had a great bike. You know, as you know, that day it was a very, very fast day, and came into T2. I knew, you know, where I knew the course well. I had been there and ridden it, and came into T2 in 9th place, which, like, to be top 10 heading out onto the run, I was so stoked at. But unfortunately, like the run, it's one of those things, you never know what you're gonna feel like when you get off the bike and start running. And I always hope that it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna feel amazing. And that was absolutely not the case in Kona. I basically, by the time I hit the Queen K, I was not in a great place. Just like not, you know, I was still running decently, but very far off of my pace. And when I got out of the energy lab, my speech was slurring. I was wobbling back and forth. I couldn't take in any food or nutrition. I was incredibly nauseous. I was tingling all over. And I was like, you know what, if I can keep putting one foot in front of the other, I'm going to keep moving towards that finish line. There was no question of this isn't going to happen. And my saving grace, which I really wished would have happened much earlier in the race, is around kilometer 37. I puked my guts out. I threw up so much, so much. And then all of a sudden it was like a magic. And the last few kilometers I ran in at my race pace, and it was like nothing ever happened. You know, coming down and under the banyan tree and everything. And it was just such a crazy experience. And, you know, it's unfortunate that I had such a crazy race in Kona, but I think that that's what, you know, just crazy things happen in Kona. I think that it's hard to really predict how your body's going to react to all of that. Some people race really well in the heat, and I think that To me, it really felt like a bit of a blur. And I had a lot of stress actually going into the race too, because I had a foot injury that popped up about 3 weeks out. So I actually wasn't running at all for 3 or 4 weeks before Kona. And mentally, that was really stressful, and it took a lot of energy out of me. And I think that it was a big learning experience in understanding just how much that pre-race stress can contribute to a race, and that in retrospect, it feels like I kind of missed out on the joy of Kona. That even despite having a crappy race, like, it could have still been a really interesting and wonderful experience that I could have like just been a bit more mindful of. And yeah, I'm excited to go. I'm excited to go back and have another go. I'm hoping for strong winds, like is normal. And to just have a different experience there, and hopefully get my nutrition nailed a little bit better.
Andy, do you have a follow-up question?
No, just a couple of comments. It's I kind of had a similar experience the first time I did it, that I just felt so kind of down about the whole experience. And I just said to myself, if I ever got the chance to do it again, mentally I'd be better prepared, and just to kind of be a bit more zen about it. And so that's what happened in '88. I had a really good experience. And then I can actually remember seeing you, Rachel. I'm heading out to the energy lab, and you were on the way back in. And I think Steph was there on her bike, kind of chatting away at you as you were heading towards town. So it was a interesting day, and like you say, you have a love-hate relationship with it. I spent half that race going, I'm so glad I never ever have to do this again, and the other half going, yeah, man, it would be really neat to kind of do this again. So anyways, I've always kind of wanted to get your perspective of that race. So thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Steph was there with me almost every step of the way. I credit her for getting me to the finish line in a number of ways, between, just bunny hopping me along the run course, especially when I was in my darkest place, and also saving me from the medics pulling me off the course. I think they almost threatened to pull me off, and she was like, no, they're fine. Which would have been brutal to, if I can still move forward, I want to keep moving forward, and to have been pulled, like, to have a DNF not like out of my control at Kona would have been pretty heartbreaking. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. We've
Michelle.
got to actually, Michelle, I'll cue you up, but Rena has a question. And then if you're good to jump in there after. And Rena, you go for it.
Okay, yeah. So, hey, Rachel, thanks for doing this. This is so awesome. Yeah. How do you deal and overcome in the hurt zone during a race? Because I know for me, like, when I start bonking, it's like, I talk to myself and do numerous weird things, but I'm always curious what other people do when they're hurting.
Yeah, gosh, that's a really, it's a really tough place to be. And I will absolutely admit that in every single race that I do, I contemplate stopping. At some point my brain is like, if you just stop, it'll be fine. Or sometimes I'm praying for a flat tire. or something, which I really don't want. I know that, but that's just my brain's way of saying your body is in pain and we don't like this. And one thing, like in those moments, I have this drive of like, I think that I take in the external motivation a lot from like my family and my supporters and all of my sponsors and everyone who has like supported me to get to a start line. For me, especially if my family is there, or I know that they're following along online, I know that every time I hit that timing mat that they're going to be getting a notification and following my path. And I really have this strong motivation of like, if I literally cannot put another foot, like there's no reason for me to stop unless there is some medical reason why I can't. And for me, just having that motivation and the more that I race, understanding the roller coaster that happens in races. So, I raced Ironman Frankfurt with food poisoning, which was horrible. And I felt absolutely horrible the entire day until the second half of the marathon, when I just switched up my nutrition a bit and all of a sudden I was gold. And ended up running myself into sixth place. And that got me a Kona qualification. And so, I think for me, it's about keeping that perspective of like, okay, this is temporary. How I'm feeling right now is temporary. I know that the faster I move right now, the faster I'm going to get to the finish line. And that also checking in of like, if I'm really in this place of hurt and feeling like something's feeling off, especially in Ironman, that it's like, okay, let's check in. Like, am I hydrated enough? Do I need to eat something differently? Do I need to eat? Do I need to stop eating? And just using that as like a cue of maybe there's something else going on. I find that, especially for long distance things, that breaking things down into smaller chunks is really helpful. So I know that, even in, like counting strides, just like counting up to 20 and just like constantly just count up to another 20. Or I'll tell myself to like, give me another like solid 5 minutes, or give me another like solid minute, depending on how horrible I'm feeling. Little tricks like that. Yeah.
Cool. I love hearing the mental tricks that other athletes use. I had a mixture of things too. Sometimes I boil it purely down to like how much more my paycheck would be if I beat one more person, which sounds really crass, but sometimes that was a great motivator in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I developed this when I was racing short course ITU. I would imagine that I have a rubber band tied around myself to the finish line, and that is like basically like pulling me towards the finish line. And I found that to be super helpful. Yeah.
Cool.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Michelle, do you want to dive in there?
Hi, Rachel. So my question, and I mean, maybe you can answer part of this, and then I would be interested in hearing other people's thoughts as well, is like, with no races on the calendar, essentially, and just like so much uncertainty, how are you trying to find the balance between like motivating yourself to train at like a higher, more intense level versus like, I'm gonna ride my gravel bike every day? So, like I'm in Victoria right now. I'm actually going to go to Thetis Lake after this if anyone wants to join me. But like I've just been riding my gravel bike and it's been so much fun, and I'm trying to take the time to remember why I enjoy doing all of these sports. And like I ran for 2 hours the other day just for the joy of it. So that's helpful to me at the moment, but I know that at some point that will have to change even with no races on the calendar. So like how do we manage this, and like how are you managing, and how do we get through this, I guess, as a community?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I think for one, like right now, it's okay, and it's probably the best option to be doing these just fun adventure things. Like I'm in the same boat of a lot of the rides and runs that I'm doing are just like, let's go out in the trails and explore. Let's go find some new gravel rides to do. And it's not that you're, in those contexts, you're still building fitness. Like if you're riding a gravel bike in BC, it's not flat. Like you're still going up hills. And so you're still getting a lot of like some intensity and build up, but in a context that is, a lot less structured and just a little bit more fun. And that's what I've really been focusing on as well, of like, I have all of these adventure ideas that I want to do, but in the summers I'm in the middle of an Ironman build and it's not possible to do those things. And so I'm taking the advantage of like having a summer off basically to do some fun things. And at the same time, like, yeah, the intensity that I have some structure in some of my workouts and some of that, and it is not crazy hard. Like it's never anything that I am like totally shattered after, which is keeping my body and my brain really like still mentally there, because I know, and I think all of us like, well, I think that coming out of this, there are going to be sort of maybe two different paths that people will follow. Either folks will fall off the wagon and be like, I don't want to do this anymore, and lose that motivation. And another cohort of people will really thrive because they've gotten a break and they've had the time to just chill. And with all of a sudden, with a goal race back on the calendar, there will be a lot of motivation to stay out there, and to start back up with that structured training. Yeah, and I think that as long as, I think it's been important for me to be kind to myself, to say, it's okay. Like if I don't feel like pushing crazy on this workout, that's okay. I'm just going to do my best today. And, if I miss some workouts, that's fine. Like right now is a time to be a little bit more gentle with myself. And knowing that through, we'll have a lot of, we should have a lot of lead up to know when the race is actually going to happen. And so if if we've been keeping up the fitness to a certain level, it's going to be easy to just like, get back into half Iron or Ironman shape or race shape. Yeah, that's basically how I've been approaching it. And yeah, I think that there is a strong mental component to it. My run coach, Lisa Bentley, is amazing at, one of the things she said was, like, think about how you are going to be better coming out of this. So like, you can think about all of those folks who are giving up, but is that going to be you? Like, think about how you can be, like, make yourself a better person coming through this.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like I'm trying to do those things. I think if anything, I feel like I have the Ironman hangover a little bit without ever actually having completed a full distance. Like there's like the roller coaster of like, I'm so sad, I'm also so happy, I have so much free time, I feel so disappointed, I've lost my identity, like all of these things. And eventually I'm just like, I'm gonna go to the island and drink beer every day for 10 days, and then when I come back we'll do something else. So yeah, but it's good to know, I guess, as well, that like I'm not alone in those emotions, and like trying to be nice to myself and letting myself go, like letting myself kind of miss workouts and stuff, because it's hard to just keep that intensity on your own, especially when like we were training in COVID times where everything was a solo adventure all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Our swims, which were socially distanced, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
We had Shannon Thompson on last week, and I think some people on here were on that one. She's a positive sports psychologist from Arizona University. She works down in Flagstaff with.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, she works with like quite a few teams down there, mostly high-end runners, I think, but lots of the different teams from the university. And she sort of addressed that question as well, and said that, you know, it's really interesting because there's, even at the highest level in running, it's sort of split. Like some people are like, I really need to just take a step back here, run because I enjoy running, and, you know, with not much structure and not much pressure, and kind of have a break. And then on the other side are people who are just like, I'm going to set a PB in the 5K in 8 weeks. You know, like they're kind of, and as a sports psychologist, it's sort of interesting to hear her take, because she's like, I don't really know what the right answer is. I feel like it's just so different for everybody. And you have to don't feel like you need to fit into any particular thing. Like you kind of just have to do what feels right in that moment. And for some people, it's like buckling down and setting some PBs. And for others, it's like, I'm going to take a step back here, take a little breather, and go ride my gravel bike for 10 hours on the weekend, or whatever that is for them. And I found that interesting, just that it was like permission to just be exactly how you feel like you should be, and kind of get more in touch with that. I don't know if that makes sense. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fascinating. Recognizing that I have actually, like, I've set myself goals for this year. Most of those goals are just distance based. So I want to do like a 10K point to point swim. Hopefully it's going to be point to point, but I want to do a 10K swim.
cool.
Yeah, I never want to swim longer than 10K because I think that's crazy. But for me, for some reason, I'm like 10K point to point. That'd be really fun. I've never ridden over 260 kilometers, so I want to do a 300K ride. I have a lifelong dream of being an ultra runner in the trails, and so my next goal, of small step forward, is to do like a 30K run in the trails. I don't care how fast I do any of these things. I just want to complete them. However, I do have like specific power numbers that I would like to hit. I have some run numbers that I would like to hit. And so I know that, yeah, I feel like I have a bit of a mixture of goals this season that are keeping me motivated to keep swim bike running.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful for me.
That's cool. Yeah. I was trying to think of where I would fit into that space, and I don't really know if I have an answer. Another interesting thing that she mentioned was that some people are taking it as an opportunity to experiment. So, you know, if we're in the height of a season and you've got races, you're sort of doing the thing you always do to get ready for those races. But there's a couple of groups who are trying things totally out of the box that are maybe a little bit risky, but they think might work. And so they're going to try it through the summer. This was running in particular, and I forget the example that she used, but it was kind of to the extent of some different type of training that the coach had always thought might work, but was just a little bit too risky. And so they're just going to try it and see how that pans out come September, because there's no real downside and there might be a huge upside. I thought that was pretty neat too.
That's Cool. That's really neat. Yeah.
Yeah. Last call we had a young figure skater on with us, a 12-year-old. I work with some figure skaters, incredible athletes, and
Wow.
she's very keen. And so she jumped on the call, which is sort of an odd call because it's all adults, and we're talking about endurance sport. But I thought it would be a neat one for her because it was a sports psychologist, and we use that example with her in figure skating. My daughter is a figure skater, and they will work on new skills. And then when a competition gets about 6 to 8 weeks out, they ditch the new skills for a little bit because they have to really focus on what's going to actually get them points in that competition. So they have to really refine what it is they're going to do in that competition. So the element of risk and challenge and change is still there, but not as much. Like they kind of just put aside these higher level elements that they will get eventually. And I said, this is actually a really huge opportunity for sports like that because there's no competitions and there probably won't be into the fall either. So instead of thinking, oh, it's this big loss for us because we can't compete, like now might be the time where you actually get all your triples because you don't have to put those aside for 6 to 8 weeks every 12 weeks to get ready for competition where you're not going to use that element. And anyway, I kind of liked that perspective because it brought a little bit more freedom into the process in a way. It was like, okay, well, this is a huge opportunity to really kind of step up in a different way.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool.
Well, sorry to ramble on there.
No, that's awesome.
I just get so excited. Okay, who else? Anybody got a question? Yeah, Lindsay.
Hi.
Hey.
I just have a question because I know you started your pro career a little bit later, like later into your 20s.
30s actually.
30s. Okay.
30s. Yeah.
Oh, I just turned 30. So in the same boat. Like what if you could go back or like you're just wondering maybe what your perspective is on with the timing of that and like what advice would you give yourself at 28, 29, 30 going into a career as a pro athlete? And like how did you manage that? Okay, now I have an advanced degree, but I want to do this other thing. That sort of like balance of becoming a pro athlete with so many other things going for you in life too.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So looking back, I think that in retrospect, there are a couple of things. So when I started to become a high performance athlete, so I did my first triathlon at 28, and then became pro at 32, and in that time did another degree. And I think that at the time I didn't have people around me who were super supportive of my athletic pursuits, and I think that was pretty key in like causing a delay in terms of like getting to that full-time. Like I think I had the potential to be a full-time, like to be a professional athlete, but had people in my life and my own sort of self-doubt that kept that in check for longer than need be. I also, because I came to sport, so I was like, I was sporty as a kid until I was 15, and then I quit everything and didn't get back into things until I was 25, 10 years later. And so, and I'm of the personality of just like fill my day every single minute with something, just like go, go, go. You don't need sleep. You don't need to rest. And that, to me, that led to a lot of injury in my first several years of my career. And I think that if I, in retrospect, like understanding the importance of rest and balance was really, really important. And it's only, I still struggle with that. But it's something that, you know, I've had 5 stress fractures in my career. If I could have had like maybe just 2 of those, there would have been so many more races and months that I could have trained, and it would not have necessarily been such an emotional roller coaster. And I think that as well, like the emotional side of things, I am very committed to my career. I'm very driven, and when things are, you know, I credit going through so much injury with creating this or amplifying the resilience that I have and the powerful mental capacity that I have. However, the like emotional side of things and the emotional roller coaster was just a bit like I'd say like hindered some of that progress. And so to just have worked on that a little bit more. You know, it's difficult when, like, I can't imagine doing anything in my life right now aside from racing and training. And if when that is taken away from me through injury or whatever, then there is this like deep chasm in my life of like, no, I don't want to do anything else. And so just I think dealing with life balance and that emotional side of things is something that early on would have been a lot better. Yeah. But it was really dramatic for me, the like going from a place of, to me, it was an easy decision to like not use these expensive degrees that I had accumulated. You know, I really enjoyed the process and of like learning and everything. But once I found sport, I was like, I have never felt like this about anything before in my life. I am so passionate about this. It does not feel like work. I have found my calling. And so it was actually really easy to leave that all behind. I think that's all I had to say about that.
Mm-hmm. And was there like a specific like catalyst that tipped you to like dive into professional racing, or was it just kind of like over time you knew that was what you wanted to do?
Well, I think for me, there were like 2 moments. There was like the initial moment where I did my first triathlon and realized that I had a talent. Like I almost won my first race, and it was like, you know, the UBC sprint triathlon, and it was just a little race, but I just thrived on that competition and my immediate success. And you know, I did my first triathlon, and 18 months later I was amateur world champion, and that was super motivating for me to be like, oh, I have this natural talent, and this is something that I could really actually be successful in. But at the time didn't have the like support around me to pursue that. And then the catalyst to actually take things full time was again just like I had come out of I just finished my degree. I had only been bike racing during that 18 months, and my coach at the time just was like, I think you should try this half Ironman. And that was Shawnigan Lake, and I ended up winning it by 24 minutes. And you know, if I looked at my time and compared to like the world championship times that year, I would have been in the top 10. And so I was like, okay, I'm 32, I'm not getting any younger, so I'm like, it's now or never. And in that moment, I had built up that support network that was way more supportive. I had people who were behind me who understand what it was like to be a professional athlete, to be focused on high performance sport. And so I just like all had that support around me, and things just sort of fell into place.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Rach, one of the things you mentioned was just learning the importance of recovery. You know, you had lots of injuries, and so learning the importance of recovery. Physically, I think people always not always understand that, but it's easier to understand. I really believe too that there's like your willpower, your ability to go to those dark places and races and really fight for it is also like a muscle, and we have to recover that as well. So a question for you would be, like, on the mental side of things, do you have strategies that allow you to recover mentally after these really big training days or weekends or weeks, or even after races where you've had to really mentally stick it out? Are there things you have in your life that allow you to recover there as well?
I mean, I think I don't know if I super focus on the mental side of recovery. I mean, or like what that looks like for me is often like with big races or training days. For me, what I have to limit is some of the food that I intake, and like types of foods, just because my gut doesn't work properly. And so that's kind of my indulgence, is like, I've had this big day or I've had this big race, and so now I have like a couple of days or a week to like eat cheese, or or like have a few more beers than usual. That's kind of I'd say that's my way of like mentally recovering. Or I probably will also just like tune out, just like watching Netflix or indulging in something that is easily digestible, like that. And also just recognizing that recovery days and recovery workouts are just that. Like, that's not the time to go out and smash things. I will go and, my recovery spin will be out in the trails, or something like that. Like, to me, that is how I mentally sort of debrief from things and get a break.
Cool. Thanks. Anybody else got one? Rach just answered like everybody's questions.
I think we were supposed to ask about wetsuit on Jeremy's behalf.
Oh, I think Jeremy's here. He could speak up himself.
Yeah. I think he's supposed to put a wetsuit on for 20 minutes while we watch again this week.
Last week, Jeremy did wetsuit, sort of like just, telling us about wetsuits, and then he actually got into one that I think fit him about 10 years ago. It did take about 20 minutes. It was amazing. I was like, amazing. Wow, Jeremy really sort of, he's very committed to these talks.
Jeremy's also mentally scarred from that last week still.
We all are, Jeremy.
Actually, sorry, let me preface that. Kim, my wife, is more mentally scarred from seeing me in the wetsuit run around the house after the Zoom call.
I love it.
Rach, I do have a question for you, actually, if you've got some time.
Yeah.
First off, thanks for doing this. It's awesome to see everybody on Zoom. Have you noticed in your progression of triathlon the different equipment changes that have benefited you, and if so, how have they benefited you?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm like super not a techie, and so basically I feel like I just use whatever is thrown at me. To be honest, I do know that, of course, I did my first triathlons on a Cervelo soloist road bike and with the clip-on aero bars and training wheels. And so moving up from that obviously to like a fancy TT bike and the deep wheels, that was a big change early on. But then otherwise, I think, for me, again, I focus mostly on my own fitness and I don't pay a huge amount of attention to the tech side of things. I know that I've got people around me who pay more attention to that, and and so, I do reap the benefits of that. I think that moving, getting into just like tweaking my TT position for aerodynamics, choosing, having wind tunnel opportunities to really figure out what are the best wheels and body position for me aerodynamically. Those are some of the biggest things. And then just having the opportunity to like upgrade with ceramic speed components and, even the move from to like DI2, electronic shifting, from mechanical on the TT bike was massive. That to me was a really massive advantage and was like night and day. And I was like, I'm never going back to mechanical. Yeah, I think I would say that the biggest change in technology, or like I think it's just knowledge, is our understanding of nutrition, and what's important for nutrition for long distance. So the longer I've been in the sport, it's really changed dramatically. And even in the past year, for me, working with Stacy Sims and understanding like the different, like how male and female bodies are different and how my body is different and what my body needs nutritionally, because as we know, that's a massive component to long distance racing. That to me has been the biggest sort of like technology advancement, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And quick follow-up. From an equipment standpoint, have you noticed, just with being injury prone, you mentioned 5 stress fractures, have you noticed the changes in your footwear? Do you vary up your footwear at all, like long distance training shoes, short distance training shoes, speed shoes, racing shoes? Has that helped manage your injuries over time?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So footwear has been like massively important in my, like obviously having 5 stress fractures in my feet has been really massive in terms of keeping me healthy and providing different support at different times. So I spent a year with a stress reaction in one of my feet. I didn't run for about a year, and early on is when I discovered first it was running in Hoka shoes that had more cushioning, and that was a game changer for me for a certain time period. And then recognizing that actually all of that cushioning, which was helpful in one for a certain period of time, was actually causing more damage than the benefit. And that my bones were actually, I fractured one of my metatarsals running 3 hours a week. And I was like, how is this happening? And how can I be a professional athlete? And this was, I think this was around 2015, when I was 13 months without racing. And it was one of the longest time periods that I was injured and was not able to race. And coming out of that, recognizing that actually what my bones needed now was, and what my feet needed, was a bit more stress. However, and just the evolution of like understanding that my bones needed more stress, but what is actually probably causing aside from needing more stress, is causing these stress fractures and reactions is a lot of the like tightness in my foot and compression. And so finding a shoe that like allowed me to actually like spread my metatarsals out, and I roll my feet every single day. And that's where I discovered Topo and natural foot shaped shoes. And that has been a massive game changer for me. They just like, I can't, like, I was running in Topos before they were supporting me. If they didn't support me, I would be buying their shoes. And I change my shoes up every single run. So I have, you know, both road and trail shoes with between 5, 3, and 0 drop. I switch up my shoes every single run. I do have shoes that I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit tired, or I have a long run, or you know, and so I'm going to be wearing these more cushy shoes, or I have an interval workout, so these are my speedy shoes, or yeah, I switch up like so much my running shoes, and I feel like that keeps my feet really healthy because they're not getting the same stress over and over again. They're getting like a little bit of different stimulation, and so it's keeping everything like a lot healthier.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
On the technology side of things, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but one thing I've always been curious about is that crazy bike that came out like several years ago. I see the odd picture with it, but I never really see it being used. If you can't talk about it, that's fine, but I'm wondering what happened to it.
Yeah. No, so yeah, that's the Andean. Created by Toronto's own Kevin Kwan, who designed he designed Cervelo's P2 and P3 bikes, as well as I think Night Wheels and some other stuff. He's an incredible engineer, really great guy. And so that was a creation. That is a creation by Diamondback. It is an incredibly aerodynamic bike. I did race it in Kona, and I did race it in Cozumel one year. It is a bike that performs incredibly well in windy conditions, especially with a little bit of a crosswind, and it performs really well on flat courses. It's a little bit heavy, and so that's why I typically don't race it unless it's a course that's super flat. I think it would have performed a little bit better in Kona had there been the winds that are usually there. And so it was disappointing for me not to have that on that year. But it's a great bike. It's just like for someone like me who's my size, it's just it's a little bit heavy for anything that's got like over 1,000 meters of elevation.
If you don't know what we're talking about, check out some pictures. I think there's one on your website, Rach, of the bike we're talking about, because it really is quite eye-catching. It's quite an extraordinary looking bike. I was actually surprised to say that you rode it in Kona, because I would think it would be, with some of the crosswinds there, might be quite lethal, but maybe it takes it and still tracks straight like a sail almost.
Yeah, it is very much like a sail. I haven't, you know, people are always asking about that. Oh, what about crosswinds? And in my experience, it hasn't been, I haven't had issues with crosswinds. It's possible. I think anyone riding in some of the, you know, potential crosswinds of Kona can get thrown off their bike. But yeah, I haven't had any issues so far.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And it was really like, I was down in the wind tunnel in San Diego when they did the initial testing on the bike, and was able to get into the tunnel with the bike and see the numbers compared to the other, you know, the Sirius, for example, and other manufacturers' bikes. And like from an aerodynamic standpoint in the tunnel, it was incredible. It was really incredible.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Jeremy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, Rachel, with Diamondback announcing that they were taking a step away from road bikes in general, is this something that you're going to stick with the bike, or are you looking at potentially making a change in the next year or so?
Yeah, no, yeah, Diamondback is definitely, they still have the Andean for now, and but are definitely, more of a mountain bike and getting more into the gravel. Of course, I mean, gravel is exploding right now, and gravel racing the gravel majors is absolutely in my future. And that was what my hope for this year actually was, to start doing some of those, especially getting my early Kona qualification allowed me to have the space and time to do that. But yeah, no, I'm planning to stick with Diamondback. I mean, I still love their bikes. I have the old TT bikes, and I still have an Andean. I still ride their road bikes. It's really, I think it really sucks that they have pulled out of the road and triathlon side of things, because their bikes are incredible. They're awesome. But I'm planning on sticking with them, especially in this gravel phase. Yeah, they've been a really great company to work with. They've been incredibly supportive, and yeah, to me, those relationships are really important.
Awesome.
I feel like you'll just crush the gravel scene, if there is a scene. I mean, they seem sort of like what ultra running was a long time ago, which was just sort of pretty casual, but maybe they're ramping up to be pretty legit races now.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. The fields are only getting stronger, and yeah, I mean, I can boast that I've only lost one gravel race in my life, and it was only because I don't think I could have won it anyway. I was racing with a friend of mine, and I didn't even try and sprint her. She had helped. I had lost some water, and she had fed me along the way. And I was like, I'm going to let you take this win, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So
you have road cycling etiquette, road racing
yeah.
etiquette. There's like not unwritten rules, but there is a code a little bit there, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it was, I'm not that type of competitor who's like, yeah, I've sucked your wheel for so many hours, and now I'm just going to out sprint you. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm that guy. But the trouble is I can't sprint, so there's no good anyway.
Right.
Hey, just in the interest of time, I want to respect everybody's time. I know people probably have places to go, but hey, this has been so great. I'm so grateful you came on here. Thank you so much. I know people were excited to hear your perspective on things, and yeah, you've got some real good stuff. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so happy to be here with everybody. It's nice to see some familiar faces, and yeah, any question, like if anybody's got any questions, you know how to find me on social media. I'm really happy to chat.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks,
We'll
Ray.
go for a gravel ride when I'm back in Vancouver.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, have a good day, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.